Perfect. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here at the United Nations this morning. It's a beautiful day. And on a beautiful day, we have a beautiful subject to discuss and a beautiful experience to learn about. So things are changing in the world and things are changing at the United Nations. One big thing that's changing is that with the Secretary General's strategy on youth engagement, there's a big focus recently on engaging with youth, empowering youth, and not only that, but also acknowledging that youth are leaders today. They're not the leaders of tomorrow, as many said often, but they're the leaders of today. They're leading now, and of course they'll play an important role to play in the future. Today, it's exciting to talk not only about a Security Council resolution that's also along these lines and changing the way that we perceive youth and that the way the United Nations and United Nations member states work with youth, but also that has very concrete impacts on the ground in achieving sustainable development. So not only is what we're going to talk about linked to Security Council Resolution 2250 on youth, peace, and security, but also to Sustainable Development Goal number 4 with a specific target. So Sustainable Development Goal number 4 is for education for all and access to education throughout life and training. And it says for target 4.7, to ensure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through promotion of a culture of peace and nonviolence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. This is a concrete deliverable that countries, member states, communities are being asked to deliver by 2030. And all of you gathered here today, and the member states and the UN entities that are supporting this initiative are supporting this concrete outcome and implementation of the SDGs by supporting this. So I'd like to thank, on behalf of the Department of Global Communications, the Permanent Mission of Italy, the Permanent Mission of Jordan, the Permanent Mission of Armenia, of the European Union, and also the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth for bringing us together to talk about this initiative today. And of course, to Rondine Cittadella della Pace, which is the reason why we're here today. My name is Jeff Brez. I'm Chief of Civil Society, Advocacy and Special Events at the United Nations, and it's my pleasure to moderate this session. So without any further ado, we do have several speakers that are going to talk about their experiences. And so I will not introduce them all. I'll introduce them one by one, beginning with Her Excellency Mariangela Zappia, the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Italy to the United Nations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for introducing this important conversation today. And thank you also to the Department of Global Communication for facilitating this discussion. I wish to thank, of course, my dear friends, the Ambassador of Jordan, Sima Bahous, and the Ambassador of Armenia, Meher Maryavan. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you and together with Silvio Gonzato, Chargé d'Affaires of the European Union. I also want to thank the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, because you were involved in the organization of this, and the Office of the Special Envoy on Youth. As Jeff correctly said, this event is also wants to be put in the framework of what the UN are doing in this very specific and important issue. Exactly 1 year ago, on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we organized the permanent mission of Italy to the United Nations. We promoted the official launch of the 3-year Leaders for Peace campaign. This campaign was initiated by the Italian NGO Rondine, Citadel of Peace, which for 20 years has been training young people from conflict and post-conflict areas to the values of peace, reconciliation, and intercultural dialogue. The ultimate goal is to promote their role as agent of change and active builders of inclusive and peaceful society. On the occasion of the launch of the campaign, we emphasized the innovative aspects of Rondine's approach to peace building and conflict prevention based on the education of future leaders. 1 year later, we are really pleased to welcome Rondine Cittadella della Pace back to the United Nations for an exchange of views with the protagonist of this initiative, its young students. They are tomorrow leaders, and we are here to bring their proposals to the place where the decisions are made about how to face today's challenges at the global level. Franco Vaccari, Rondine volunteers, students, I'm really truly pleased to have you back for this conversation today. Italy sees culture and education as indispensable instrument for consolidating peace. We firmly believe that young people have a role to play as agents of a new narrative of peace and dialogue. Having this in mind, Rondine is a source of inspiration and exemplary in the way it puts youth front and center. Peace and peaceful coexistence are built on dialogue and mutual understanding, values that these young people, despite having lived through difficult situations, have come to master through their experience at Rondine. Today, they have come here to remind us of their importance, and we will listen to them very soon. Youth, peace, and human rights are the basis of Rondine's winning formula, with 42% of the world population under the age of 25. Investing in young people and committing to give them a role in preventing and solving conflict can only be the key to success. The adoption of Security Resolution 2250 on youth, peace and security and the launch of the UN strategy Youth 2030 that Jeff was reminding us indicate that we are heading in the right direction. Young people are not only victims of war, but can and must be the key to change, the true guardians of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I would also like to highlight another important element, namely the considerable increase in the number of female participation in Rondine's classes in recent years. And this is particularly important, also with the view to promoting women's participation in peace processes. And this is a priority for us, for Italy. We launched the Mediterranean Network of Women Mediators 2 years ago, in the framework of the UN Women, Peace and Security Agenda and the Global Alliance of Regional Networks of Women Mediators at this year opening of the General Assembly. The idea is that women must be really at the core of peacekeeping and peace building. They have to be there, and they have to be there from prevention of conflict situations, but also when, when peace is done and they have to sit at the table. As UN Secretary General Guterres has stated on several occasions, it is no longer enough to react to conflict. Conflict must be prevented in all its forms. Rondine's activity is fully in line with this vision, and this is why we wanted to bring their experience back to the United Nations with a view also to the future, namely the Global Leaders School project, which, based on the experience accrued by Rondine in the past 20 years, aim to train new leaders to the values of peace, intercultural dialogue, and mediation. So congratulations to Rondine for this new important step forward, and I give you back the floor, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Zappia. Now, it's my pleasure to pass the word to Her Excellency Sima Sami Bahous, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Jordan to the United Nations.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, youth, both female and male. I am very happy to be here today. And also, I would like, before I start, to thank my dear friend, Ambassador Maria Angela, for organizing this event with a special partner that is Rondine Cittadella del Paz. We thank you also very much, Rondine, for this initiative, this inspiring initiative, and we know that the President, Ms. Silvio Vaccari, is here with us today. My country, Jordan, is also very proud to co-host this event alongside with friends, His Excellency Ambassador Margarian of Armenia and Silvio Gonzato, Ambassador EU, and the Office of the SG's Envoy on Youth. I also would like to thank the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and also the Department of Communication for facilitating this particular event. I would like also to welcome all members to this panel who I'm sure will incite us this early, bright morning and might give us some bright ideas on how to discuss how we go forward on this main initiative. I'd like to say that we in Jordan believe that inclusion of youth, both female and male, means to us peace and development. And when there is development, there is also human rights. So for us, the inclusion of female and male youth is extremely important for our part of the world and the vision that we pursue for our young men and women, not only in Jordan, but in the region and worldwide. Also, we believe that there will be no development ever and no human rights observation without peace, and that there will be no peace without human rights and development. So this kind of nexus between these important concepts are extremely important for us, especially in our region where, as you know, we are unfortunately living through many conflicts and through many changing environments of the world where youth need to be not only included, but also play a leadership role and to be at the forefront of whatever they feel they want their future to look like, and they want, as was said, their present also to look like. A few months ago, ladies and gentlemen, we celebrated the 70th anniversary of the Geneva Convention of 1949, which was a milestone for the protection of those affected by armed conflict. And yet we still see ugly, inhumane images of unarmed civilians and innocent children in war-torn countries and conflict areas, deprived of their basic human rights while trying to carry out their daily routines. We are at a pivotal moment in history where we need to look at all this and to see how youth can help us lead a better world. Xenophobes, racists have emerged from the shadows, women's rights are suffering a pushback, the space of civil activism is shrinking, and also the legitimacy of the principles of human rights are being attacked and in some areas being questioned. And this is all pours into the pot of where youth need to be and how we need to make sure that youth are at the forefront and youth are in the focus of every initiative that we do. Peace and conflict prevention are also among the very founding principles of these organizations where we are meeting today. The natural conditions of
L'obiettivo è quello di vivere in pace, liberi da ogni interferenza, liberi dalla povertà e ogni forma di depravazione e mancanza di inclusione. Non basta mobilitare sforzi per porre ai conflitti, quello che dobbiamo fare è guardare, vedere come i giovani possono diventare leader e guardare la causa alla radice del problema, e qui i giovani sono molto importanti, possono avere un ruolo importante in questo. La dimensione socio-economica comprende la povertà per i giovani, la disoccupazione, l'ingiustizia sociale, l'esclusione, le inuguaglianze, sistemi istruttivi carenti. Queste sono tutte sfide alla libertà, a una vita senza discriminazione, intolleranza per i giovani. Gli SDG richiedono un'istruzione, una formazione di qualità e promuovere una formazione continuativa. il mio paese ha quasi raggiunto questo obiettivo, con 97% dei bambini che sono a scuola. Abbiamo raggiunto la parità di genere nelle scuole, ma abbiamo bisogno di maggiori investimenti per arricchire ancora di più la qualità dell'istruzione. Penso che la qualità dell'istruzione oggi in alcune parti del mondo deve essere visto come possiamo andare avanti attraverso un migliore accesso in termini economici, guardando appunto attraverso una lente di multidimensionalità e diversità. Il mondo sta cambiando anche per i giovani, anche nelle scuole, e per i giovani che vogliono entrare nel mercato del lavoro dobbiamo assicurarci che siano pronti per un mondo multidimensionale interrelazionato che stanno entrando, e hanno bisogno, per fare questo, l'accesso deve essere abbordabile economicamente e deve essere di buona qualità. Queste sono le sfide che stiamo guardando, e se non avete queste già per i giovani non avremo buoni leader, perché se non sono pronti, se non sono preparati, se non sono ben istruiti, sarà difficile fare da guida su tanti dei fronti che vediamo oggi in questo mondo così complesso. Nonostante una delle regioni più giovani nel mondo, con più di 108 milioni di giovani, il Medio Oriente ha i più alti tassi di disoccupazione nel mondo, e questo è qualcosa che dobbiamo guardare con grande serietà, perché a causa della natura della posizione geografica della regione dobbiamo vedere i giovani come un asset strategico che dobbiamo formare oggi e formare una società futura migliore. Includendo i giovani assicura anche diciamo, non essere attratti dagli slogan e propaganda di gruppi radicali che rimangono vivere diciamo, nel pensiero pacifico per guidare società pacifiche che vogliamo. Quando parlo della mia regione, e mi scuso per portarlo alla vostra attenzione, sono due motivi. Noi siamo una parte del mondo, e due, vediamo appunto il radicalismo, almeno parte del fenomeno viene anche dalla regione, perché a causa proprio delle questioni di disoccupazione, di disuguaglianze, non stiamo guardando le cause alla base dei problemi. Dobbiamo guardare questi numeri e vedere come possiamo dare diciamo, un impatto positivo invece che negativo. E più di 2/3 dei giordani sono minorenni, e il mio paese investe più del 20% nell'istruzione e del PIL, e è un grande investitore. Produciamo dei laureati più di ogni altro paese nella regione, gestiamo più del 75% di tutto il contenuto di internet in lingua araba dell'intera regione. Le donne sono i nostri asset, come ho detto prima, per l'istruzione, l'addestramento, la formazione. Gli ambasciatori, i leader, i driver della crescita economica sono qui, in questi giovani. E anche se la popolazione giordana conta solo il 3% del mondo arabo dell'Africa del Nord, il 23% sono giordano, 23% di persone, di investitori, insomma. Noi
of refugees, yet we take pride in our human capital, in our record on human rights, particularly our young talents. We believe that equipping young talents with knowledge, know-how, experiences and competencies, we render them ready to be the leaders and the agents of peace, innovation and stability. We have launched many initiatives, as you know, but the most important for us is what was mentioned this morning, United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250, which was adopted unanimously in 2015, and based on which this initiative is here today. It calls for the empowerment and inclusion of youth in decision-making at all levels, and sets up the framework to ensure meaningful participation and inclusion of youth. Thus, our meeting today, our project today, Rondine's philosophy also in following up on this, and I really would like to welcome you all again here, and to say that also we do have what we call the Amman Declaration on Youth, Peace and Security, and we also nurture as much as possible entrepreneurship and creativity, as well as private-public partnership in creating leaders for the future. So the way forward, I guess we all agree, is that quality education policies, leadership development and training for youth, innovation and peace, as well as keeping in focus the 17 global SDGs that will help us arrive at resilient, sustainable, and peaceful communities. The world is interlinked, the SDGs are interlinked, and the youth, most importantly, are rooted in their own societies, and they need to stay rooted in those societies, but to be more active and to see that their ambitions and their dreams and their aspirations and their needs are being addressed through all kinds of development for peace. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry if I took longer than I should, but I usually do, by the way. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ambassador Bahous. I can see a lot of you taking notes. There will be a question and answer period, so do hold on to your questions, but do keep taking your notes. I'm also taking notes myself. Thank you again. Ambassador will go to His Excellency Silvio Gonzato, Ambassador Chargé d'Affaires at Interim and Deputy Head of Delegation of the European Union to the United Nations.
Sorry for taking so long with my title. Cara Mariangela, caro Franco, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, young women and young men, it's an honor for me to be here, but it's also a pleasure. Let me be a bit chauvinistic and say that I'm proud to be in this room and to partake in this initiative that takes origin from my home country. Worldwide, 1.8 billion young people want to make their voices heard. The vast majority of them are living in low-income countries, and many of them are affected by conflict. Recognizing and empowering young people's aspiration is the promise of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda. And the work of Rondine Cittadella della Pace and its initiative, Leaders for Peace, is a very concrete contribution to implementing this agenda and SDG 4. The EU has a long-standing commitment for youth empowerment and for partnerships with young people. This has been very much the leitmotif of the work of our former High Representative Federica Mogherini. We fully share Rondine's view that education is essential in this respect. One of our most iconic programs, the student exchange program Erasmus, has for the past 30 years opened up opportunities for millions of young people from Europe and beyond to study abroad, understand and appreciate other cultures, create contacts, and build networks. Our new Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, who took up duty last Sunday, has announced her intention to triple the Erasmus Plus budget, which has a strong international dimension. We're also fully involved in the implementation of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda. Last year, we organized the first ever Youth, Peace and Security International Conference in Brussels. We are listening to young people on how to consolidate our policies on youth, peace and security. And we have been working with partner countries, multilateral institutions, and with young people and their organizations to jointly translate policy into practice, to implement the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda on the ground. We have created extended networks with young people from Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, Asia, and elsewhere. These networks, such as the EU-Africa Youth Hub or the Young Med Voices, provide open channels of communication to discuss global issues, to connect young people who share the same challenges, and to connect also leaders from the EU and from our partner countries. We have taken important steps to move this forward, notably through bringing the voice of young people in high-level dialogues, including at the UN, and I think that's extremely important, because their ideas and passion are essential to help governments do a better job in fulfilling their needs, and for us to hear from them about what works and what doesn't. But to make our partnership work, we need more than just listening. We need innovative thinking and new ways of connecting and learning from each other. We need to move from advocacy to action. Crucially, we need young people to tell us not only about their problems, but to present us with solutions. One aspect of how we innovate together with young people is the Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange, a groundbreaking project to which I contributed actually, so I'm quite proud of it, enabling youth in Europe and the Southern Mediterranean from more remote parts and perhaps less privileged backgrounds to engage in meaningful intercultural experiences online as part of their formal or non-formal education and to encourage them to develop such contacts. The Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange creates a safe online community to encourage and promote intercultural dialogue, employability, and citizenship. and to strengthen the youth dimension of the EU neighborhood policy. Crucial to the accomplishment of the Youth, Peace and Security agenda is to make difference for young people and for another generation on the ground. Presently, the EU is conducting close to 30 crisis prevention and crisis response actions on 4 continents to strengthen youth resilience and to promote youth peace building. So our work and the work of Rondine and the Leaders for Peace campaign are very much complementary. Let me conclude by saying that 2020 will be an important year for youth at the UN and beyond. First, because a new SG report will be presented on youth, peace and security, and we expect the Security Council to take new action in this regard. Second, because we will be celebrating the anniversaries of several key UN documents, the 5th year anniversary of the Agenda 2030, the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, and the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and its Charter. And you can count on us to make sure that young people are fully associated in these important projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gonzato. And with my apologies to Ambassador Margaryan from Armenia, I apologize for skipping you in the order. I'd like to give you the floor. His Excellency Meher Margaryan, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Armenia to the United Nations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I would like to thank Permanent Mission of Italy and Rondine Cittadella della Pace for this important initiative, which we welcome and support. The upcoming anniversary of the Security Council Resolution 2250 is an important opportunity to reflect on the progress of the member states and to scale up the efforts of the international community in promoting meaningful participation of young people in promoting tolerance, peace, and dialogue. The young people in Armenia represent a very vibrant and active part of our society. Young men and women played a key role in democratic transformation in Armenia throughout the peaceful Velvet Revolution in May 2018 by fully exercising their right of freedom of expression and peaceful assembly in a non-violent manner. Today, the government of Armenia is placing significant priority on the promotion of inclusive participation of youth in political and public life, most importantly at the decision-making levels. A remarkable progress has been achieved in terms of empowering young leaders, and currently the composition of the government, the parliament, as well as regional authorities in Armenia is very illustrative in this regard, with a very high level of representation of young people. It gives me particular pleasure to welcome today the presence of one of our young leader parliamentarians at today's meeting, Ms. Maria Karapetyan, a deputy of Armenia's National Assembly and a member of the board of directors of Rondine. Dear friends, attempts to restrict the fundamental freedoms of expression and movement of young people or to impede their dialogue and interaction, in particular in conflict situations, result in the deepening of dividing lines and can further lead to the most serious manifestations of intolerance, such as hate crimes and atrocities on ethnic and religious grounds. Promoting divisive narratives and ethnic profiling at educational institutions result in radicalization of youth, and such practices should be resolutely condemned at all levels. By contrast, education policies that aim to promote human rights, dialogue, and inclusion represent an important tool for prevention of radicalization of young people, fostering understanding of the cultural diversity and tolerance towards different religions and cultures. Friends, we firmly believe that young people can play a key role at all stages of conflict resolution, particularly in promoting dialogue and confidence building across the dividing lines. In this regard, we acknowledge the important work carried out by the Rondine Cittadella della Pace, aimed at empowering young women to raise their voices for peace, nonviolence, and reconciliation. Track 2 initiatives such as the Leaders for Peace global campaign can become a platform for interaction between young people affected by conflicts. Inclusive engagement of youth, in particular those residing in conflict areas, in such initiatives can be instrumental in promoting humanization through dialogue. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to once again welcome today's event, which Armenia was happy to co-sponsor, and look forward to insightful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Margarian. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Franco Vaccari, President of Rondine.
It is not rearmament and disarmament are enough to repress the danger of war. We need to repress the spirit of aggression, exploitation, and hegemony from which war stems. We need to rebuild a conscience. So spoke the Honorable Igino Giordani, Deputy to the Constitutional Assembly of 1947 in Italy. This conscience, invoked repeatedly by many protagonists of 20th century history, still must be shaped. Today, by comparison to the moment when this was invoked, the world has changed completely, and this conscience, which we were waiting for then, would be insufficient today. A global conscience that still does not exist should be shaped today in order to live and govern the global world. It must be formed urgently at the grassroots level. Among the citizens, we must form leaders for the immense responsibility that they have. A world never seen before is before us, quickly and chaotically, while instead it should be governed. This is why, distinguished ambassadors, kind ladies and gentlemen, young people, leaders, and leadership are the two words to which I wish to call your attention today. 1 year ago, as Ambassador Mariangela Zappia said, whom I wish to thank, as well as the whole Italian mission, for the passion with which they have accompanied us in this process. This is why we have come here and brought a message and opened and initiated a campaign. We have decided to make available in a field as wide open as the world, an experience that we have lived as young people who have come from areas, from peoples bloodied by conflicts that have degenerated in various forms of violence and of war. An experience that has allowed us to develop the Rondine method, which on the one hand can reconcile where horrible wounds have opened, and on the other hand to promote a positive education in which ordinary conflicts present within every society, social, economic, or religious, or intergenerational, or within families even, can be transformed into development and growth, a method that focused directly and courageously on one word that leads to war and that poisons every corner of even the most peaceful societies. This word is enemy. We cannot pretend that this word does not exist. We have discovered what the enemy is and how the enemy is built and how it can be deconstructed, how we can prevent its construction. If we cannot defeat violence, which will always come up, we will not be deluded or dreamers without our feet on the ground. We can, however, prevent the construction of the enemy, its culture, its enemy logic. No war has ever broken out without the idea of an enemy that must be eliminated. Yes, we know the enemy has as its final outcome war. But at the beginning, and before all else, it is a human experience. Rondine is here at United Nations, not because it deals with war, but because it is engaged in a change at the heart of humanity. While we have been housing for more than 20 years young people from war conflict zones, we're not here to repeat the umpteenth no to war. We to be a sort of faded echo of persons much more authoritative than us who have already pronounced their no to war. We are here to say yes to a new culture, a culture of relationships among people. We are a new and positive approach to conflicts based on universal human experience within a healthy relationship loses its destructive powers and can be turned into a source of development. We are asking you to pay attention to this fact that regards us, no one excluded. We have discovered among these young people from places of violence and war who were born and raised with a poisoned identity regarding the existence of an enemy, that there is instead a human infralogical, psychological, spiritual infrastructure that allows relationships across conflicts to transform pain into a source of growth. In short, either the relationship that we build is stronger and therefore able to transform pain, or the pain is stronger and therefore will destroy relationships, producing anger and violence. In every human relationship, there is a micro-laboratory of peace or of anger and violence. Regarding this human infrastructure, or on this, we can build an educational infrastructure to produce a culture that can unify various levels of us in relationships, a communitary us, a social, and finally, a global us. Preventing the creation of the enemy, we can structure an instruction apt for our times, marked by accelerations in complexity and in conflicts, which intimately connects universal elements with the details of different local cultures. We can educate to a new mentality through a vital and integral experience that is not only knowledge, but wisdom. There are also already prestigious schools and interesting studies of global processes. We call upon all of them, starting with you here today, to come together in a new unifying project to generate a global consciousness. Starting from human relationships, investing into the primordial human format, a habitat for every possible development, the everyday gym for workout place for every difference, irreplaceable for the affirmation of human rights. I'm not speaking of something unknown, anything but. It is a universal experience. We have all grown up among different relationships that life has given to us and in those which we have known how to build. We all know that pain can corrode even the strongest relationships. We know that human relations are not respected, especially within relationships. Our approach, as has been mentioned, is at the center of the Sustainable Development Goals of Agenda 2020. We recall, I'm thinking of peace and justice, global partnerships. I'm thinking of what these worlds have seen in 2015, the approval of 2250, thanks to the leadership of governments and the countries present in this room today. 1 year ago, we came here encouraged by our encounters with President Sergio Mattarella, with Pope Francis, and we came here because someone raised this pen, so that each of you could make a small gesture. In Rondine, we ask the young people to make the possible steps. We don't teach illusions, we teach concrete steps. Today, we are again asking to we're asking you to join our campaign. Last year, we felt there was a risk of conceitedness. Rondine is so small, and the world is so big. After 1 year, we are here with a heritage of new relationships, with relations with more than 30 governments, organizations, and international organizations that are interested. We come here with the convinced adherence of the Prime Minister of Italy, Giuseppe Conte, who I thank, who has repeated his support in his speech to the General Assembly on September 25th of this year. We have come here with 3 governments today, with the European Union, who wish to promote, who wish to add their support for this initiative. We come here with an international academic world which expresses increasing interest toward the Rondine method. Today, we renew our invitation on the concrete basis of an educational experience that allows us to concretely overcome the logic of friend and enemy, and we're asking you to work together in a process of planning the first global leaders school of the 3rd millennium. Not simply a school of leaders of pace for countries in conflict situations, but for every continent, for every country and every city, because the future leadership will either be a leadership of peace or it will not be. We'll start together with you who wish to join our campaign, distinguished ambassadors, kind ladies and gentlemen, young people, a process of global participation, a complex process of listening to each other. They will have many different contributions that will keep the youth front and center. Many new young leaders with antibodies toward the idea of the enemy who will not fall into this trap that has been in human history up until today. Many world leaders, young leaders in every corner of the planet. After me, you will hear from 3 of these young people of the Rondine. I'd ask you to listen to them carefully, because they speak as always in the Rondine, on behalf of the more than 200 young people that have been through the educational process at Rondine. Each one represents his or her own culture, people, and country, but each also has the other peoples and other countries in his or her heart. This is a fundamental point, so I ask you to listen to them, as we would certainly listen, despite the differences we have, but with the fundamental human element that we all have. So this room for 1 hour will be Rondine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Vaccari. I do see some people who I think are probably not Italian speakers but did not have access to the earphone. So I wanted to just repeat a couple of the key points from President Vaccari. So he's talking about a school of global leaders that they're running based in the concept of using the Rondine method, based in the concept that the fallacy of the concept of the enemy. Right? So there is no enemy. The concept is a fallacy. And it's a method that says yes to a new culture and a new mentality among peoples, to acknowledge that there's a universal human experience and a human infrastructure that allows us to turn pain into strength for development. And over 200 young people from around the world have benefited from this course, and they're continuing their work. Thank you very much again, President Vaccari. I also need to ask the speakers that are following. I know this happens a lot at the United Nations. We apologize, but we are running over time. We also started a little late, so with our deepest apologies, we ask you to please keep it concise. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Taryn Lesser from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation from the Permanent Mission of Italy to take part in this event. I'm going to mention briefly something that seems to me illustrative of a shift in global human rights youth advocacy. In September, UNICEF reported that 15 petitioners under 18 years of age from 12 different countries around the world presented a landmark official complaint to the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child to protest what they viewed as lack of government action on the climate crisis. The complaint aims to inspire the urgent action needed to stop global warming and mitigate the impact of the crisis. And I think we would all agree that environmental issues and decisions about development that are not inclusive are frequently documented to be at the center of conflicts. Indeed, the resolving of land and resource disputes are key to preventing and managing violent conflict and achieving sustainable peace. This complaint seems to me significant in three ways. First, these petitioners were between the ages of 8 and 17. And under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, they are considered minors. Security Council Resolution 2250 on youth, peace, and security in 2015 defined youth as those between 18 and 29, but these advocates are quite impressively starting even earlier. Second, it represents young members of society coming together globally around the world, advocating for their voices to be heard. They registered a formal complaint to the UN, in this case, a set of UN experts, about how they believe their or other governments are handling matters of global importance. The last couple of months, the media has shown us many demonstrations across the globe, representing young people clamoring for a voice in an otherwise oppressive atmosphere. The violence against, death toll, and imprisonment of students, journalists, workers, human rights defenders, indigenous peoples, and environmental activists, among others, is shocking. Many of these individuals are youth who just want to participate, who just want a seat at the table. Thirdly, this complaint seemed significant because it was announced publicly through a press conference and received quite a lot of media attention, which is not necessarily customary with complaints to UN treaty bodies. They used this publicity as an advocacy strategy to bring attention to their issue. Indeed, different types of media, including social media, has been a key tool helping youth organize themselves into networks and share their views with others. But while social media and internet freedom has provided opportunities for greater discourse and access to information, it has also offered a platform for anyone to openly criticize, dehumanize, threaten, and harass those with differing viewpoints. And we are seeing this even more against those who want to participate in the UN and speak up. Some critics provide their alternative views on the issue. In this case, the youngsters are bringing attention to environmental issues. But while others blatantly attack the individuals themselves speaking their mind. Through more open and free discussion and debate of ideas, we're also seeing more of a willingness to publicly or privately attack the individual, their organization, their community, or their family. And this seems to me very relevant in this discussion, including based on what Mr. Vakari said, that there is no enemy. This must be taken into account for any leadership program for youth in their communities. But we are also, on the other hand, seeing enormous courage on the part of young people. They are more aware of human rights. They're more aware of their own rights. They want to stand up for human rights for themselves, their communities, and their networks. And at the UN Human Rights Office, we see a steady stream of cases of repression against individuals and their organizations trying to speak out. And it would be rather dismal to view the situation as just this, of repression and oppression, of conflict, of violence. So what inspires me and my colleagues is a spirit of conviction and courage to keep going. And that is what I will leave you with. As courage, I would argue, is a main ingredient to become a leader of peace in your community. So best of luck in your initiative.
Thank you very much, Taryn Lesser, with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We appreciate your words.
1.8 billion young people in the world. It is estimated that 408 million young women and men live in a context affected by armed conflict. It is in the interest of all of us to give youth a greater voice in decision-making at all levels in order to create a more peaceful, sustainable, and prosperous world. The UN Security Council resolutions 2250 and 2419 on youth, peace and security make a very clear justification in this regard and urge all relevant actors to consider ways to increase meaningful participation of youth in peace processes. In UN mediation, inclusivity is one of the fundamentals to ensure an effective peace process. An inclusive process is more likely to identify and address the root causes of conflict and ensure that the needs of all sectors of the population are addressed. It also increases the legitimacy and national ownership of a peace agreement and its implementation. Young people have a critical role in shaping, implementing, and sustaining peace agreements. They will inherit the long-term consequences of the peace agreement, so including them early on in a peace process is crucial. A particular focus should be put on promoting the participation of young women, as they often face specific challenges and forms of exclusion. The Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs is therefore very engaged in advancing the youth, peace and security agenda. In March this year, DPPA supported the organization of the first international symposium on youth participation in peace processes, which was held in Helsinki, Finland. The symposium brought together young peace builders from over a dozen conflict-affected countries for an exchange with mediators, practitioners, and member states on best practices in engaging youth in peace processes and the importance of including young people in peace processes. The event was co-organized by the UN Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth and Search for Common Ground, in partnership with DPPA, UNDP, and UNFPA, as well as the United Network of Young Peace Builders, and was co-sponsored by Finland, Qatar, and Colombia. One of the very concrete outcomes from Helsinki, from the symposium, was the publication of a policy paper called We Are Here, an integrated approach to youth-inclusive peace processes. I have a few examples here for those who are interested. The policy paper conceptualizes youth participation in the forms of layers, namely inside the room, around the room, and outside the room. By using layers instead of the traditional track 1, 2, 3 approach, the policy paper points to the fact that young people and youth-led initiatives and organizations regularly build linkages between the formal and informal spheres of peace processes. In South Sudan, for example, at the High-Level Revitalization Forum, young people used social media platforms to put pressure on the parties to the conflict. While this type of participation did not have a direct impact on the discussions inside the room, it was a powerful message of unity among civil society members and led to an alliance of their representatives participating in the peace talks. The paper also shows that youth influence does not always correlate with proximity to the negotiation table. While proximity matters, youth participation outside the room can be more influential than passive youth representation inside the room. In Somalia, for instance, young people organized large protests to build pressure on the negotiating parties and contributed to a fast signing of the Galkayo ceasefire agreement in early 2017. As mentioned above and earlier, young women and men constitute the majority of the population living in conflict-affected countries, and they hold the key to its future. In Afghanistan, over 60% of the population are under the age of 25 years. Excluding their views from peace talks could jeopardize a sustainable solution to the conflict. Including their perspectives from the early stages could help to envision a common and peaceful future, which ultimately relies on their support in implementing the peace agreement and rebuilding social cohesion in the country. There's still a lot to be done, but I'm confident that we're on the right way. And it is particularly encouraging to know that there are so many good initiatives ongoing, like the one from Rondine Cittadella della Pace, that are and have been working for many years together with young people on the transformation of conflicts and towards the promotion of peace and human rights. So I very much look forward to hearing more from you and on your work, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Sana Vogeli from the UN Department of Political and Peace Affairs. Thank you for joining us. Next speaker will be Dr. Adam Muller, professor of the University of Manitoba in Canada.
Thank you. Is that, let me first briefly but sincerely thank Rondine founder and president Franco Beccari and his team, along with everyone else responsible for organizing this event, for inviting me to speak with you today. It's a privilege, genuinely a privilege to be able to do so. I've been asked to share with you some of my thoughts concerning the meaning and significance of Rondine Citadel of Peace and its conflict resolution method to scholars like myself who work at the intersection of genocide, peace, and human rights studies. For those of us who have devoted our lives to understanding the causes and costs of mass violence, to figuring out such things as the best means of containing or preventing conflict, the most effective strategies for assisting victims and survivors of war and atrocity, and of course the most durable means for securing and propagating peace, Rondine may be considered a kind of laboratory. Indeed, this is the term that Franco Beccari himself has used in reference to the organization he established. He writes that Rondine is, quote, a center of gravity and a place that has attracted and regenerated many. A free laboratory, end quote. It's within this laboratory that theory and practice are brought into contact with one another, further refined and aligned. What is a laboratory? Etymologically, the term dates back to the 12th century when the Latin laboratorium first came to designate what we now in English call a workplace. More specifically, early laboratories were rooms or buildings devoted to the practice of alchemy and the preparation of medicine. I like this early usage. And I think it neatly captures two salient features of the Rondine project. First, Rondine is a space within which important work of conciliation and repair is attempted. Those living and interacting at the Studentato Internazionale, the World House, work together to develop strategies and projects, healing medicine, if you like, suitable for application back home. Second, Rondine is a place where a special kind of magic takes place. According to Pope Francis, who spoke of Rondine in the 2018 address, quote, there is a mystery of pain and transfiguring love, and you, who have developed the Rondine method for the creative transformation of conflicts, up there near Arezzo, you receive continuous inspiration to progress in the service of the common good. Alchemy, of course, refers to the attempt to turn a base metal such as lead into gold, to take something commonplace and unappealing and transform it into something valuable. Analogously, Rondine takes the lead of isolation, prejudice, resentment, and fear, and slowly, carefully, transforms it into a program for positive peace. Such peace is very precious, and it is characterized not by the absence of conflict, but by the presence of engaged and active peacemaking practice. However, unlike alchemy, Rondine has produced results that are both verifiable and lasting. This accords well with the modern understanding of laboratories as sites equipped for carrying out scientific experiments or procedures, especially for the purposes of research, teaching, or analysis. These results also help to explain why Rondine is fascinating to scholars. For us, Rondine is nothing so much as an opportunity, or maybe a series of opportunities. the opportunity to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of a compelling method for resolving conflict, to contribute our understanding of what peace and peace leadership are, to rethink the foundations of what we understand as conflict, to contribute what we come to know about violence, what we have come to know about violence and peace through our own processes of professional specialization, to come to terms with the vulnerabilities that arise from and persist long after episodes of human conflict. And finally, the opportunity to work with victims of violence, peacemakers, politicians, young people, and others, to change laws and policies with a view to quieting the world, to promoting security and alleviating suffering, distrust, want, and need. In closing, I'll return again to the words of Pope Francis, which were initially addressed to the young students participating in Rondine, and which echo loudly in our present age of overly crass, muscular, domestic and international politics. Quote, "There is a need for leaders with a new mentality. Those who do not know how to dialogue and exchange with each other are not leaders of peace. A leader who does not try to meet the enemy, to sit with him at the table as you do, cannot lead his people to peace. To do this, we need humility, not arrogance." End quote. By relocating to Rondine, those living in conflict zones can be released from the structures of hate and violence constitutive of the us-them clash, so as to live in a community, or as a community that restores to them a disposition of openness, trust, and commitment to the possibility of peace. As Franco Vaccari has written, quote, "The Rondine Cittadella della Pace Association shifts towards the future, the dynamic hub for a new culture of coexistence, and presents itself as a place where those who do not meet can meet, those who are or feel they are an enemy can quit the deception, and those who want to star in their own future can do so."
Thank you very much, Professor Muller. Now we'll turn to hearing from the youth, and we're going to begin with Mr. Elad Morad, who is a Rondine alumni.
Good morning, buongiorno. Thank you very much, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. So, what is Rondine? We all like to talk about peace, conflict resolution, change. What does it really mean? What do we really do about it? Allow me to try and tell you what do we do about it in Rondine. So, unfortunately, my region in the Middle East has endless wars. But I remember that specific one. I was called with my team to serve. I was a young soldier back then, sniper, commander in the Special Forces. I spent more than 30 days in that war. A lot of dark nights, endless pain on both sides. When you come back from the war, you start to ask questions. Philosophical questions about life, death, the essence of humanity, about words like ally, enemies. Who is that faceless enemy I was fighting against? 3 years later, I came across this mysterious but yet fascinating opportunity called Rondine. And 3 years after this horrible war, I found myself moving to Italy, to this amazing village in the middle of Tuscany. And this time, I was sharing the same roof with my so-called enemies. Only this time without uniform, having good Italian wine, playing soccer, traveling, celebrating birthdays, yes, arguing a lot. But we were celebrating life. We were celebrating our diversity in Rondine. Rondine gave us a lot. Definitely the best pizza in the world. It's also a good opportunity to say grazie Romana if she's watching. But the best gift we got was simply time. Time to break walls. Time to break misconceptions. Time to understand there is no one narrative. But above all, time to get to know who your enemy really is. You see, the reality is still here. And there are bad people on both sides all the time. And if needed, I'll go to protect my country tomorrow. But it's important to remember that the enemy sometimes is ourselves, being captivated by those misconceptions. We just need to unlock our mind to it, to see it. And this is what Rondine does. So, why you should care? What do we do next? Rondine has 200 graduates who basically do the most incredible thing in the world. We truly have the best job in the world, really. We keep hope alive. We keep hope going. So one day, we can drink that Tuscany wine in our backyards, at home. Investing in Rondine is investing in the most precious thing the world needs these days. Young people will keep carrying that hope for those who lost it. And we all know a lot of us lost it. We're doing it with technology, policy, and a lot of education. I currently live in New York City, working for this great startup. You know, everyone has a startup these days to change something about the world. But ladies and gentlemen, I can't think of a better startup than Rondine to change the world. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Elad Morad. I think we understand what your experience and exactly what Rondine is doing. So really appreciate that, putting it into perspective and sharing your experience. Thank you very, very much. Now we'll move on to Isaac Bayo, youth delegate from Sierra Leone. Mr. Bayo.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Moderator. Permit me to stand on existing protocols, and I bring to you greetings from the Permanent Mission of Sierra Leone. My name is Isaac Bayo, youth delegate. The Mission of Sierra Leone extends its sincere thanks and appreciation to all the co-sponsors of this event. I am equally grateful for the invitation to be on this panel to highlight the need for a new global, youth-led approach to leadership and peace building. Coming from a country that has tasted the bitterness of war, declining the invitation to speak on this topic is not an option. My country, you may all be aware, went through one of the fiercest and bloodiest civil wars of our time, which culminated in the destruction of the political, social, economic, and cultural fabrics of the society. And to just update on there, we've been celebrating 21 years of peaceful coexistence since the end of our civil war. And it may interest you to know that most of the despicable crimes committed during the decade-long civil war were committed by young people. Thus, the relevance of this discussion to my country. Last year, we witnessed here at the United Nations the official launch of the Leaders for Peace global campaign. Member states were encouraged to invest in training global young leaders capable of intervening in conflict situations around the world through advocacy. Leaders that will promote the development of peaceful, social, and political relations. Additionally, our respective countries were called upon to consider the introduction of human rights education in our national education systems, integrating them with the experiment of the Rondine method on the creative transformation of conflict. Sierra Leone understands the immense importance of youth inclusion in achieving the goal of the world where no one should be left behind. As a result, the government has prioritized youth employment and empowerment to create opportunities for youth. And to underscore this point, I wish to highlight that a whole cluster is devoted to youth empowerment and related issues in our medium-term National Development Plan 2019-2023, Education for All. Growing awareness among the youth of our role in development and the willingness of the political class to include young people in development at all levels are opportunities the government seeks to leverage in order to improve the socio-economic condition of all young people in Sierra Leone, irrespective of location or political persuasion. The Global Leaders School, in our view, is an institution every peace-loving nation should support. For want of time, I'll quickly summarize the reasons why countries should support such an institution that has been carefully designed to educate young people on conflict resolution, soundtrack diplomacy, and the promotion of peace and human rights. First and foremost, our world today needs to adopt a strategy that can put young people at the forefront of leadership and peace building, which can only be achieved by giving us the appropriate kind of training. Secondly, bringing together students from around the world will enhance the exchange of cultures, ideas, and knowledge, like my colleague Ilan Morad just stated, which are at the heart of peace building and respect for fundamental human rights. Thirdly, empowering and actively involving us in a variety of productive activities through education and training will help develop our full potential and self-esteem. It is also important to mention that educating us young people on our responsibilities is a vital part of peace-building community. Sierra Leone, being a post-conflict country, requires general education in not only peace-building, but also in human rights. We believe that giving young people the opportunity to learn about peace-building and leadership will help us take responsibilities as national, regional, and global citizens. Moreover, exposing us, young people, to practical experiences in these types of education will help in creating a wider culture that respects human rights and peaceful coexistence. Mr. Moderator, the government of Sierra Leone and its development partners have made tremendous strides towards ameliorating the challenges in educating future global leaders. Despite the policy interventions and actions by the government and its partners, we're still grappling with challenges such as limited programs for youth, exclusion of young people in top-level decision-making, inadequate access to finance, inadequate policy and legislation that protects the welfare of young people, and drug use and abuse, among others. We believe the main challenges in educating future global leaders is the volatility of our educational environment because of the easy flow of arms into the system, and the normal ways they have been used to perpetuate different kinds of crime. The presence of intimidation, harassment, cultism, violent fight, maiming, and destruction in tertiary institutions can be seen as theatres of war. To overhaul higher education to achieve its goals and possibly empower youths to develop attitudes for peace, call for the adoption of peace education in all its ramifications is not only Sierra Leone, but the world at large. We believe peace education is a highly fundamental instrument in moderating unwanted behavior in society. It can change the physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual abilities of people within the context of their cultural, political, and social minus for sustainable, peaceful living. Peace education also encourages the cultivation of peaceful attitudes in its receivers and create conducive climates in tertiary institutions that will promote its effective and efficient management for optimal performance. Additionally, peace education can modify the behavioral orientation of youths and strengthen the capacities of tertiary institutions. Therefore, higher institutions of learning can achieve this by totally transforming its receivers to challenge stereotypes and sentiments which stand as barriers to the formation of peaceful attitudes as deemed fit by societies. Let me close by applauding the initiative to establish the Rondinese Global Leaders School, which we believe will be hosting students from most of our countries sooner than later. We appreciate the fact that Rondine continues to share its initiatives with our mission, and by extension our country. Sierra Leone has a long-standing, fruitful relationship with Rondine, and we're looking at further strengthening that relationship. With this said, I just want everyone to just hold each other's hands, the person next to you. Yes, let's do that. This is what love is. This right here is what love feels like. This right here is what peace feels like. To seek strength in our vulnerability and build up from that. Thank you all.
Isaac Bayo, Youth Delegate from Sierra Leone. I think we're now going to roll a short video.
Young people coming from places of war and post-conflict situations, belonging to enemy populations and parties. We have created and experienced human and cultural coexistence in the 20 years of the life of Rondine Cittadella della Pace in Italy. Through its innovative approach to conflict transformation, which we call the Rondine method, we have learned to live together as global brethren. At Rondine, we have understood how the concept of enemy is a global fallacy that pervades the world's different cultures and insinuates itself into people's lives, emotional, sentimental, intellectual, and cultural, depriving relationships of mutual trust. We need global leaders, leaders of peace, trained with this new method, capable of immediately influencing societies and our world to guide change and propel us into a new era of human history. 70 years after the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and a century after the end of World War I, we can choose to leave 100 years of war behind us and look ahead to 1,000 years of peace. The objective is the gradual extinction of wars from the planet through the affirmation of a culture of pacified relations. Leaders for Peace is the name of the 3-year campaign we are launching today, and for which we ask the 193 UN member states and other nations, social, religious, and economic entities, families, and private individuals to provide for the training of new global peace leaders who can intervene in the main contexts of armed conflict in the world, to promote the development of pacified social, economic, and political relations. Rondine is committed to training the first 200 leaders over the next 10 years with its global intervention project. Extend to all the member states education on human rights in their national education systems, integrating them with the results of the Rondine method on the creative transformation of conflicts as a significant development of Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Donate scholarships to train new global leaders. We ask member states for a symbolic contribution which can be earmarked in their defense budgets. This is our first step. We are waiting for yours.
It's now my pleasure to invite Stephanie and George up to the podium to say a few words to you.
Excellencies, Ambassador, representative to the United Nations. Excellencies, the representative of the organizations, distinguished guests. My name is George and I'm from Mali. Speaking about Rondine, I always say that school taught me a lot about how to speak French well, about history, about how to run a business. But Rondine taught me about life. I call this experience the most beautiful and the greatest experience I have had so far. When I found it, I called it the school of the life. It is the kind of school experienced by Amadou Hampâté Bâ, one of the greatest Malian writers who wrote the most famous and beautiful books without having a major university degrees. I'm one of those who are in love with knowledge and who believe that a good leader is someone who seeks to learn about others, instead confining himself in his own knowledge as a dogma. It is how I find myself in this wonderful school of life with young people from countries around the world to whom I could learn and also share my knowledge. The awesome thing is that for the first time in Rondine, I could see and live among young people with different cultures, with diametrically opposed point of view. Most of them came from countries in conflict with each other. But by living together, they ended up building strong relationships between themselves. I saw the case of my friend Hamid, who became inseparable with Arina, a kind and smart girl from a country in war with his. It showed me the power of a dialogue in creating tomorrow's leaders for us. Coming from Mali, a country in war against terrorism, where international forces and UN peacekeepers are present alongside Malian soldiers and people, I asked myself many questions, like how I can contribute to bring back peace. Far from the chaos, far from the desolation experienced by the displaced people, most of them women and children, I could find a place where I heard 1,000 different stories that enriched me and made me understand that I'm not alone. The most interesting thing about the experience of Rondine is that by living together, we ended up bonds of fraternity between us. Everyone could learn from something, so everyone could learn something else from the others. Rondine is a place where you don't just learn to become a leader, you practice it, you live it. You live it through stories, you experience it directly every day while applying the lessons learned through the high-level courses, all with the help of people around who can share different points of view. It is a place where each of us has been able to reflect and to develop a social project. I have had often benefited from the others' help of others on my project of society. I could compare my project with the others, see what is good with theirs, and know their point of view. It is space where your problem is not only yours, where you can have several solutions because each of us put himself at the service of the others. One of my friends, Bakaz, one day, when I was sad because of my village in the center of Mali was attacked, passed all the day with me, helping me through that difficult moment. That day he showed me how much it could be affected by my problem. He showed me how important it is for a leader to listen to others, to take others' problem as his own, and to help with suggestions, supporting people in difficult times. In Rondine, there is the force of the difference of language during the first month, the difference of cultures that we share over time, and the difference in the vision of life. All of this has become a strength for me because by sharing our stories, trying to get to know each other better as a person, and eliminating the barrier of harm, we have started to see ourselves as a big family of young global leaders. Because everyone feels concerned when we talk about each other. From Rondine, I will bring in Mali a global solution to a problem which is in fact universal. I understand the challenge of each country represented in Rondine, and now I know something more, how each young people of each country interpret its own conflict. I have found in each student a different vision and the same goal. The goal of seeing that learning from each other, because in the end, we all want one thing, which is peace. The peace of one becomes the peace of the others. And we are all ready to contribute by bringing our stone to achieve this goal in all countries. We all see ourselves as part of the goal of others. So today, I do not just care about what is going in Mali. I also care about Nigeria, Colombia, and any other country. Because peace is home. Peace in home is when there is peace among others, be it in Africa, in Asia, in America, or in Oceania. I finish with this beautiful words of singer Salif Keita who said, "C'est la différence qui est jolie. It's the difference which is pretty." I would add that the difference has made us global leaders of peace and change our vision of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Stephanie.
Honorable ambassadors, fellow from Rondine, ladies and gentlemen. I am Stephanie. I am from Colombia, and it is my pleasure to address you all on behalf of the Rondine students. Have you ever been scared? I have. It was the 3rd of September of 2018, the day that I arrived to Rondine Citadel of Peace. I remember that afternoon that we were in Italian classes, and I was surrounded by young people that were apparently like me, but that before my eyes, they were totally different from me. I was scared to speak, I was scared to act, I was scared to behave, I was scared to be judged or misunderstood. I was so scared that I wanted to go home, because Rondine was so different from my hometown. But I didn't. I decided to stay because I made the choice and I had the conviction that fear cannot lead my life. I am. So I stayed, and I started a journey of 2 years to undertake a training course on the creative transformation of conflicts. I expected to become kind of a master in conflict resolution, but not. It didn't happen. And I assure you that there are many other people that from many other prestigious universities that has more knowledge than me in this field. So what is the unique lesson that I have learned in Rondine during this time? One afternoon, I was sitting with one of my friends, and we were using translator in our phones to communicate. And I learned that day that communication is not about speaking the same language, but having the willingness to listen to the other. In one of our events, I saw my friends from 2 different countries on the same region but in war, and they were dancing together the national dance. And I was surprised because sometimes your enemy can be so much like you. A couple of months ago, one of our fellows from Rondine, he decided to go back to his country. But before doing so, he left a letter to his friend, coming from the country that is his enemy. You already heard it from Elad and from George. This is Rondine. And I learned through my time in Rondine that even though enmity has been imposed on us, we still have the option to choose friendship. We still have the option to say no, and we still have the option to change the future by denying the history of conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1945, the United Nations Charter was adopted and given birth to this intergovernmental organization. The preamble of this treaty establishes, we, the people of the United Nations, determine to save succeeding generations from the scare of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. I was born in 1993. I belong to the succeeding generation that the United Nations Charter was referring to. And unfortunately, this institution didn't save me from the scare of war. In fact, like all the Rondine students, we grew up within a global political system that spreads hate speech. imposing on us the burden of having an enemy. We grew up listening to the sounds of bombs and alarms, hearing the stories of people and families expelled from their own land. We grew up surrounded by dead bodies in the streets, which are not just bodies. They are human lives. Humans, like me, like you, like us. One of my best friends, she lost her brother while she was in Rondine. He died. She went back to her country to be with her family in this hard time. But she came back. She returned to Rondine. And this surprised me because beyond the pain and the suffering that she was experiencing, there was the strength of the conviction that she wanted to become the best version of herself. This is what we do in Rondine. A place where we learn to transform ourselves and lead our lives so we can be able to transform a conflict and lead towards peace. I believe that the time has to come for us to rethink and reevaluate the way the global leadership has been exercised. We owe this to the lives of those who are no longer with us, but above all, to those lives yet to come. We need a leadership that is not based on theoretical arguments, but on the strength of the experience. We need leaders able to transform our reality because they themselves have been transformed. Ladies and gentlemen, we need leaders who understand that the interest of humanity has greater value than the state interest. Today, we extend to you all the invitation to join our efforts to elaborate and build a global leaders school, able to educate and train future leaders who will work to achieve a sustained peace. We need everyone, we need every country, we need every people involved in this process, because peace is not the task or the journey from one person, it's the task for all of us as humanity. As our moderator said at the beginning, youth, we are not the leaders of the future, we are the leaders of today. And we are here, and we are ready to take the responsibility to lead and construct a peaceful future. Thank you.
Thank you all for being with us today. We have gone quite a bit over time, but we do want to continue the conversation outside. Before we do wrap up inside the room, though, we'd like to invite one intervention from the floor, from someone who has traveled to be here with us, from Caritas. The floor is yours. You can keep it concise so that we can continue the conversation then outside where refreshments are available for us.
Thank you very much. Excellencies and everyone gathered together
Please,
here.
please press the button just below the microphone.
Sorry, pressed it and knocked it out. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joseph Donnelly, Caritas Internationalis, and I'm one of the supporters of Leaders for Peace, as Caritas is, and I would just like to, in a very succinct way, say we have responded to the invitation of these young leaders for peace who have come to the UN last year to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These young people from these places around the world are a grace to us and a space for us to invest in peace. That's what this is about, and if we wanted to really acclaim them, acclaim Rondine, acclaim the movement of the Italian government to support these people whose own country has had suffered wars, etc., but they represent the world of what can be possible. Yesterday we were across the street, so just a bridge, across First Avenue, say, as Pope Francis and as Professor Adam has said, we are bridges for peace. One of the titles for Pope Francis that he hones in on is Pontifex Maximus, to be a bridge builder. That's the invitation of Rondine, that we would lay down our lives, as many of these young people have in their countries and in Italy, not just for the Tuscan wine, as Ilhan has said very nicely, but to really work with the challenge to invest ourselves in it. And last point, SDG 16 is about building peaceful societies together. And that's what this movement is all about. And my parting remark would be, Rondine is a space for us, it's a grace for us, and it's a place where peace has happened, can happen, should happen, and it's very clear that the UN and more member states, from Jordan to Palestine to Israel to Ukraine, to Armenia are listening and expecting us to react. I ran into this meeting from another meeting with 40 people around the corner who are actually having the same conversation today as civil society committed to peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all being here, for your support for Leaders for Peace. If you're going to talk about or tweet or share on social media, don't forget to use that hashtag Leaders for Peace. Thank you all for being with us. See you outside for refreshments.